Works published, Hamza Fanjari writes in the Malay language. The compilation of romances de los C plus or minus Os de Nueva Espa plus or minus a collection of Aztec poetry. Births and deaths. England John Skelton, George Gascoigne, Sir Walter Raleigh, Edmund Spenser, Sir Philip Sidney, Christopher Marlowe, William Shakespeare, John Donne, Ben Jonson, Robert Herrick, George Herbert. France Jean Molinet, French poet, chronicler, and composer, Olivier de la Marche, French poet and author, Clack copyright Ment Marot, Marguerite de Navarre, Bonaventure Despard copyright Riaz, Louise Labe, Maurice Save, Pierre de Ronsard, Joachim du Bellay, Jean Despond, Jean de la Cepede, Agrippa d'Aubin, Frena section Wa de Malabet. French language Swiss, Thar copyright Odor Agrippa d'Aubin copyright, Simon Goulart. Germany Erasmus Alberus, Johann Valentin Andrei, Johann Beltz, Sebastian Brandt, Konrad Keltis, Nikolaus Decius, Johann Fischart, Hans Foltz, Sebastian Frank, Konrad Gessner, Johann Hiermann, Nikolaus Hermann, Matthias Holtzwart, Anna Avina Hoyer, Ulrich von Hutten, 1488–1523, Georg List, Ambrosius Lobwasser, Martin Luther, Philip Melanchthon, Thomas Ma 1/4 NTZER, Philip Nicolai, Martin Opjes, Jacob Regnart, Adam Reusner, Bartholomew Currentsius Ringwelt, Hans Sachs, Paulus Chidmelissus, Johann Hermannin, Johannes Secundus, Friedrich Spee von Langenfeld, Paul Spiratus, Joshua Stegmann, Georg Rudolf Werkelin, Michael Weiss, Diedrich von dem Werder, Christoph Wissung, Julius Wilhelm Zingrave, Georgius Agricola. German language Swiss, Nicolas Manuel. Italy Benedetto Caratio, Teofilo Folingo, Lodovico Ariosto, also a Latin poet, Torquato Tasso, Pietro Bembo, cardinal and influential critic, Vittoria Colonna, Gaspara Stampa, woman poet, Antonio Sebastiano Minturno, writer and poet. Japan Araka de Moritake 1 degree a registered trademark the son of Negi Morihide, and a Shinto priest. Said to have excelled in waka, renga, and in particular haikai, Hosokawa Fujitaka C degree AE, also known as Hosokawa Yasai C degree A after the first 1/2 a Sengoku period feudal warlords who was a prominent retainer of the last Ashikaga shoguns. Father of Hosokawa Tadaoki, an Oda clan senior general. After the 1582 incident at Honoji, he took the Buddhist Tantra and changed his name to Yasai. But he remained an active force in politics, under shoguns Toyotomi Hideyoshi and Tokugawa Ieyasu, Satomura Shokuyo 1/4, Japanese leading master of the linked verse renga after the death of Tani Sobuko in 1545, Zaji a registered trademark, CN, Japanese Zen monk who studied waka and renga poetry, then became a professional renga poet in his 30s, Tani Soyoi degree a registered trademark, currency renga poet. A rival of Satomura Joa. Son of Tani Sobuko, Yamazaki Zakana +or a registered trademark, pen name of Shina no Rashige, renga and haikai poet, court calligrapher for Shogun Ashikaga Yoshihisa. Became a secluded Buddhist monk following the shogun's death in 1489. Latin Battista Spagnoli, Italian, Giovanni Pontano, Italian, Michael Marilus, Italian, Jacopo Sanizzaro, Italian, Andrea Navigero, Italian, Girolamo Fracastoro, Italian, Marcantonio Flaminio, Italian, Marco Girolamo Vida, Italian, Conrad Keltis, German, Salmon Macron, French, Johann Secundus, Dutch, Lodovico Ariosto, Italian who also published poetry in Italian, Joachim du Bellay, Frenchman who also published poetry in French, Jan Kochanowski, Pole who also published poetry in Polish, Michał Kazimierz Czarbiski, Polish Jesuit and poet, Jacob Balder, German Jesuit and poet. Netherlands Balaeus, also known as Caspar van Baal, Suster Bertken, Anna Bijs, Adrian Valerius, Joost van den Vondel, Dutch writer considered the most prominent Dutch poet and playwright of the 17th century. Ottoman Empire Bar Car registered trademark, Fusela registered trademark, Hyacinthe registered trademark, Nikati Selim II, Sultan and poet, Suleiman the Magnificent, Tashkali Yahya Bey, Roi Baghdadi, Na'i, Sayyul Islam Yahya, the Sultan Abdul. Persian language Sheikh Baha'i, scientist, architect, philosopher, and poet, Bagshay Bafki. Poland Bernard of Lublin, Mikołaj Reg, Jan Kochanowski, Mikołaj September Sortsinski, Sebastian Grabowiecki, Sebastian Fabian Klanowic, Simon Simonowic, Daniel Naborowski, Kasper Mieszkowski. Portugal Garcia de Resende, Gil Vicente, poet and playwright, Francisco de Zá de Miranda, Bernardino Ribeiro, Cristóvão Falcão, Luís de Carmo Micrones, Diogo Bernardes, brother of Fray Agostinho da Cruz, brother of Diogo Bernardes, Francisco Rodrigues Lobo, Antonio de Ferreira, Melinda Saint Gelay. Slovakia Martin Rakowska 1/2, Jan Silva N, Pavel Kimiza, Vava unregistered trademark Inek Benedict Z Nudoa 3/4, Jaren Filica 1/2, Jaren Bocasius, Jacob Jacobius, Martin Boaso AK, Angstrom Tefankomodica 1/2, Elias Solani, Daniel Pribia Uraj Tranovska 1/2 or Tranosius. South Asia Orkho, Gujarati language poet, Vedantist and radical, Balam, Gujarati language poet, Santnath Aa currency Aaa or Ekna Th. The epithet Sant Aa currency A is traditionally given to persons regarded as thoroughly saintly, Marathi language poet and scholar, Sant Tukaram Aa currency Aaa Yena currency Aaa, Marathi language poet, Krishna Devaraya, king of the Vijayanagara Empire and Sanskrit language poet, and Namacharya a degree paragraph a plus or minus a degree a plus or minus euro a degree 3/4 a degree cubed a plus or minus a degree cubed a degree 3/4 a degree t plus or minus a degree t degree. Registered trademark a degree 3/4 a degree shao degree 3/4 a degree a plus or minus a degree, mystic saint composer of the 15th century, widely regarded as the Telugu language Padakavita Pitamaha. Husband of Talapaka Malama, Molla, also known as Mollamamba, both popular names of a Tukurai Molla Telugu language poet who wrote Telugu Ramayan. A woman, Poetana, born Bamara Pathana, Telugu language poet best known for his translation of the Bhagavata Purana from Sanskrit. The book is popularly known as Pathana Bhagavatham, Habakatan, Mirabai, alternate spelling, Mira, Myra, Mirabai. Hindu poet saint, mystical poetess whose compositions, extant version of which are in Gujarati and a Rajasthani dialect of Hindi, remain popular throughout India, goes Vamar Tulsadar Saanaaan Euro Aaa, also known as Tulazadar, and Tulsidas Audi poet and philosopher. Spain Juan Bosco N, Garcilaso de la Vega, Diego Hurtado de Mendoza, Hernando de Acua plus or minus a, Baltazar del Alcazar, Francisco de Aldana, Gutierre de Cetina, Krista Cube Bal de Castillo, Luis de la Cube North San Juan de la Cruz, Alonso de Ledesma, Lope de Vega, playwright and poet, Fernando de Herrera, Luis Barahona de Soto, Pedro de Espinosa, Francisco de Rija, Francisco de Medrano, Alonso de Asilla. Other Jungchul, Korean poet, Wang Jin-ai, Korean poet, Judah Leone Medina, also known as Leon Medina or Yehuda Ariami Medina, a rabbi, orator, scholar, teacher and poet, Israel ben Moses Najara, Hebrew poet in Palestine, Ali Shah Navawi, also known as Niza M. Eldin. Pen name Naval Persian, Uomigayoch Moya Euro, meaning the weeper, Central Asian politician, mystic, linguist, painter, and poet of Chagatai origin who was born and lived in Herat, in modern-day Afghanistan. His Chagatai language poetry has led many throughout the Turkic-speaking world to consider him the founder of early Turkic literature, and the Uzbeks claim him as their national poet. See also, 16th century in literature, Castilian band, Dutch Renaissance and Golden Age literature, Elizabethan literature, English madrigal school, French Renaissance literature, Spanish Renaissance literature, university wits. Decades and years. Notes